Have you ever felt like everything was going well until it wasn't? One moment, life is calm and flowing like a gentle stream, and the next, you're caught in a whirlwind of stress, chaos, and emotional storms. It's in those moments when the world shifts unexpectedly that we truly meet ourselves. What if you could stay centered, even when life tries to knock you off balance? What if calmness wasn't some elusive state reserved for monks or philosophers, but something you could build step by step every day? There is a path. It's not loud, flashy, or filled with promises. It's quiet, powerful, and rooted in one timeless truth. The mind is either your strongest ally or your greatest saboteur. And if you learn to master it, the external world loses its grip on your peace. One of the most important ideas at the heart of Stoicism is this: you cannot control the events around you, but you can control how you respond to them. And that control is where true calm begins. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask us to avoid difficulty. It invites us to walk straight into it, mindfully, intentionally, with a sense of grounded strength. Because peace isn't found by dodging chaos, but by building a mind that stays steady in the middle of it. This video is not about abstract theory or distant wisdom. It's about real, practical tools you can use every single day to regain control of your mind and emotions. Tools that will help you stay calm when the heat rises, when the pressure mounts, and when the world seems determined to pull you off center. Let's begin this journey where it truly starts, not with the world outside, but with the world within. Lesson number one: control your mind or let it control you. Have you ever felt like your own mind was working against you? Like an inner saboteur whispering fear, anger, or insecurity at the exact wrong moment? You're not alone. Imagine this. You're at a party, relaxed and enjoying yourself. Laughter flows, the music hums in the background, and you're engaged in light conversation. Then out of nowhere, someone makes a cutting remark about you, sharp, dismissive, and very public. What happens inside you in that instant? If your mind is untrained, it reacts. Your heart races. Your ego burns. You feel the urge to snap back, defend yourself, maybe even storm out. But what if that reaction isn't really you? What if it's just your mind, hijacked by emotion? The Stoics had a word for this. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's wisest voices, said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." It's not what happened that caused your pain. It's what you believed about what happened. The interpretation, not the incident. That sharp comment, was it a personal attack or just noise in the room? One leads to turmoil, the other to calm detachment. Control in the Stoic sense doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending you're not hurt. It means observing those emotions, understanding them, and refusing to let them dictate your next move. So back at the party, what does control look like? You breathe. You pause. You look at the person who made the remark, not to challenge, but to choose. You choose not to let their words shape your mood or define your worth. You stay calm. You stay grounded. This is where Stoicism begins, not in theory, but in choice. And the moment you make that choice, you've already started mastering your mind. Now let's take it deeper, because awareness alone isn't enough. You also have to train how you respond when your emotions start to take the wheel. That's exactly what we'll explore in the next lesson. Imagine someone says something hurtful about you in public. The room quiets, all eyes shift, and for a second, you feel the urge to strike back. But then you remember, their words don't define you. Your response does. You meet their glare, not with anger or insult, but with calm clarity. Maybe a simple nod, maybe a quiet smile, maybe nothing at all. Why? Because you've realized a powerful truth. Their remark only has power if you give it power. That moment of calm isn't weakness, it's self-command. And often it disarms more than a heated reply ever could. When someone expects your fury and instead meets your silence, the discomfort turns inward. They're forced to sit with themselves while you walk away untouched. That is the quiet, formidable power of mastering your mind. But let's be honest, this kind of composure doesn't come overnight. It takes training, real training, not in temples or mountaintops, but in your everyday life. Think of the daily annoyances that test your patience. A reckless driver swerving through traffic, a rude comment from a colleague, someone cutting in line. In each case, you face a choice. You can let the external chaos shape your internal world, or you can take a breath and remember, you can't control them, but you can control you. This is where Stoicism becomes a lived practice, a way of moving through life with less burden, less reaction, more intention. Controlling your mind doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means having a strong enough inner core that emotions don't control you. It's not about becoming numb. It's about becoming free. Free from knee-jerk reactions, emotional spirals, and regretful decisions made in the heat of the moment. And in that freedom lies real power. The power to choose not just how you feel, but how you respond, and ultimately, how you live. Because the truth is simple. If you do not take the wheel of your mind, it will drive you, often into places you never meant to go. Which brings us to the next essential lesson on this path of inner mastery. Lesson 2. Anger doesn't solve problems. Anger is a natural response. It surges through your body with heat, speed, and intensity. It makes you feel alive, like you're standing up for yourself. But anger, left unchecked, is a deceptive guide. It rarely leads us to solutions. More often, it leads us deeper into chaos. Picture this. You're cruising down a crowded highway, music playing softly, your thoughts wandering. Suddenly, a car veers into your lane without warning. No signal, no courtesy. Your heart jumps. That familiar heat flares up in your chest. And now the moment of choice begins. Do you slam your horn, tailgate the driver in retaliation, shout inside your car, even though no one can hear you? It might feel justified, but ask yourself, will this reaction actually improve anything? Probably not. In fact, it might escalate the danger, cause an accident, trigger a conflict, or worst of all, rob you of your peace for the rest of the day. All because you gave a stranger control over your mood. This is where Stoic wisdom shines. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. We cannot stop inconsiderate drivers. We cannot prevent every rude comment or frustrating delay. But we can decide what part of ourselves we give away in response. And anger? Anger is one of the most expensive things to give. It costs clarity, safety, and emotional balance. What if, instead, you paused, took one deep breath, let the car go, kept your focus? That's not weakness. That's power, quiet, unshakable power. And the more you practice it, the more your reflex becomes grace instead of rage. Because in a world full of sparks, those who stay cool hold the real fire. Now, what if this calm could be carried into every conflict, not just on the road, but in your conversations, relationships, and decisions? Let's explore that next. This is the key to managing anger. When someone does or says something that provokes you, stop for just a moment. Don't speak. Don't act. Just pause, breathe, and ask yourself one simple question. Is this really worth sacrificing my peace for? Most of the time, the answer will be no. Because the truth is, anger is not the enemy. It's a messenger. It tells us something is wrong, that we've been hurt, misunderstood, or treated unfairly. But that doesn't mean it deserves immediate action. Instead of exploding outward, what if you turned that signal inward and asked, why did this hit me so hard? What part of me was wounded? When someone offends you, do you really need to lash out in the moment? Or is it wiser to reflect on why their words affected you at all? When you face injustice, is shouting your only option, or could a calm, strategic approach protect your rights more effectively? This is where the Stoic path diverges from ordinary reactions. It teaches us something simple but powerful. You cannot always control what others do, but you can absolutely choose how you respond. And that choice, that pause between stimulus and reaction, is where your power lives. Someone might try to insult you, trigger you, or drag you into their storm, but you don't have to step into it. You can stand still, grounded, and choose not to be moved. That choice doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. There's a common misconception that silence or restraint is weakness. But take a closer look. Who really has more strength? The one who loses control the moment they're challenged, or the one who holds steady even when provoked? It takes far more discipline to stay calm than to lash out. Think about it. The person who erupts in rage at the smallest trigger isn't strong. They're being controlled by their emotions. But the person who remains composed in the middle of chaos, that's someone who's mastered their mind. And that brings us to a profound truth. Calmness is not weakness. It's a form of strength. A strength so subtle, so steady, it often gets overlooked. But don't be fooled. Within calmness lies a kind of unshakable power. Let's go deeper. Society often confuses noise with strength. The loudest voice in the room? The most dominant. The one who talks over others? The one who must be in control. But look closer and you'll find something different. True influence doesn't shout, it listens. True confidence doesn't react, it responds. In a heated argument, the loudest person may seem to be winning, but they've already lost the moment they let their emotions hijack their clarity. A calm person, on the other hand, chooses their response carefully. They speak when it matters, not when they're triggered. Now imagine you're in a high-stakes meeting. A colleague suddenly challenges your idea, not just disagreeing, but doing so in a sharp, confrontational tone. The room quiets. Everyone turns to you expecting a rebuttal, maybe even hoping for drama. You have two choices. Option one, you match their tone, defend yourself immediately, feed the fire. Option two, you pause, let the silence settle, and speak with clarity and restraint. Not to win, but to lead. What do you think leaves the deeper impression? The second choice does. Always, because in that moment, you're not just keeping your cool, you're commanding the room without saying a word too many. You've shown strength not in what you said, but in what you chose not to. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Lesson 3. Calmness is not weakness, it's strength. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is not the one who speaks first, but the one who chooses not to speak at all. Let's revisit that tense moment in the meeting room, the one where all eyes are locked on you after a colleague lashes out, their voice sharp, tone condescending, and words aimed directly at discrediting your point. Everyone waits, silently anticipating your reaction. The pressure builds. Do you snap back and escalate the tension? Or do you take a breath, observe, and respond with control? In this moment, you have two roads. The first is reaction. You meet their aggression with your own. You raise your voice, harden your posture, and match the energy thrown at you. The room thickens with tension, and before long, the meeting derails into defensiveness and egos. No real progress is made, only wounds left behind. But there's another path. The second option? You choose calm. You maintain eye contact, inhale deeply, and speak, not with anger, but with clarity. You keep your tone steady, your words measured. You detach your ego and instead anchor yourself in reason. That one choice doesn't just calm the room, it earns respect. Because composure, when chaos is expected, is disarming, powerful, unforgettable. This choice, the calm one, is what separates impulsive reaction from strategic strength. And this isn't just theory. History shows us the enduring power of this approach. Take Mahatma Gandhi, for example, a leader who stood toe-to-toe with the British Empire, not with violence or loud rhetoric, but with steadfast calmness and deep conviction. When injustice raged, he didn't lash out. He walked, literally. In 1930, Gandhi led the historic 380-kilometer salt march, protesting the British salt monopoly. No weapons, no shouting, just action rooted in truth. Despite brutal crackdowns, Gandhi and his followers remained silent in their resistance, and that silence thundered louder than any army. Their calmness shook a global power. That's not weakness. That's a new definition of strength. So why do we often mistake calm for surrender? Because we live in a world that glorifies volume. In meetings, the loudest voice is mistaken for the smartest. On social media, the fastest reaction is mistaken for the most righteous. But real strength, lasting, authentic, stoic strength, lives in restraint. Think of it this way. People who shout and threaten easily aren't revealing dominance. They're revealing a lack of control. They are led by their emotions, puppets of their own volatility. But those who stay grounded, who don't get baited by provocations, they hold the real power. Because they haven't just mastered the situation, they've mastered themselves. And here's the deeper truth. When you remain calm under fire, you send a message more powerful than any argument. You do not control me. I control me. That moment defines you. Not only do you take command of your response, but you expose the fragility of the other person's approach. Without your reaction, they lose their leverage. Their aggression becomes noise against your silence. Their chaos falls flat against your peace. Composure, then, isn't passive. It's purposeful. It's the conscious choice to rise above the chaos rather than drown in it. When you respond with clarity instead of rage, when you keep your head while others lose theirs, you're not backing down, you're stepping up. And remember, the battle is often won before the first word is spoken. A calm mind can turn confrontation into cooperation, can dissolve tension without force. But what happens when life itself seems unfair? When your calmness, your discipline, your efforts still don't lead to the outcome you hope for? When others win by shortcuts and your integrity feels invisible? That brings us to the next truth, one every Stoic must eventually face. Lesson 4. Life is unfair, but that doesn't matter. So if you can't change the storm, why not change how you stand in it? Once you stop seeing life's unfairness as something personal, something out to get you begin to see it simply for what it is, a condition of the world, like the rain or the wind. It's neither good nor bad, it just is. You can't bargain with it, you can't erase it. But what you can always do is choose your next step. Now imagine this. One morning, you wake up and find you have no arms and no legs. What do? Do you fall into despair? Do you decide there's no point in going on? Or do you adapt? Do you rise? For Nick Vujicic, this isn't a hypothetical question, it's his life. Born with tetra amelia syndrome, a rare condition that left him with no limbs, Nick entered the world facing a reality most people would label as hopeless. As a child, he struggled not just physically, but emotionally, surrounded by what he couldn't do, what he couldn't be, and how different he was. He even reached a point where he questioned whether life was worth living. But one moment of clarity changed everything. He realized something profoundly powerful. If I can't change my physical condition, maybe I can change how I respond to it. And so he did. With sheer will and relentless resilience, Nick taught himself how to brush his teeth, write, swim, and even play sports, all using only his torso. He found purpose, not by changing his fate, but by changing his mindset. Today, Nick Vujicic is a world-renowned motivational speaker who's touched the lives of millions with nothing but his voice, his heart, and his unbreakable spirit. He has no limbs, but he has what many people spend a lifetime searching for: unshakable inner strength. That, right there, is the spirit of Stoicism. Stoicism doesn't ask us to pretend that life is always just. It doesn't tell us to deny pain or suffering. Instead, it hands us a powerful tool: control, not of the world, but of ourselves, of our choices, of our interpretation, of our attitude. Think of standing in a storm. You can scream at the sky and curse the rain, or you can find shelter, gather your thoughts, and use that moment to grow stronger. Because in every unfair moment lies a hidden question: will you let this break you, or will you use it to build something stronger? The person who wallows in resentment becomes a prisoner to life's injustices, but the one who applies Stoic thought rises above it, not because they are blind to injustice, but because they refuse to let it define them. So the next time something feels unfair, when you're overlooked, misunderstood, or betrayed, ask yourself a simple but powerful question: will my anger or complaints actually change this? If the answer is no, then why waste your most precious resources, your time, your energy, your peace? Redirect that energy into what you can control. Sharpen your skills, ground your emotions, keep walking your path. Because no matter how unfair the world seems, you always get to choose how you respond. That choice is your power. That choice is your freedom. And before we continue, let me pause for just a second and ask you something small, but meaningful. If you're still reading this and something has clicked inside you, if a quiet part of you is nodding and thinking, yes, I needed to hear this, then tap the like button. It tells YouTube that this content matters, and more importantly, it helps someone else who might be silently struggling find this message too. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Why? Because what we're building here is more than a video. It's a movement of calm, of clarity, of quiet strength. Let's keep walking this path together. Now, ready for the next lesson? Lesson 5. Protect your energy. Guard your mind like a fortress. If strength begins with controlling your reaction, then mastering your response is where transformation truly happens. Let's take a step back and reflect. Can you recall a moment, perhaps just recently, when you felt like you completely lost control? Maybe it was an insult from someone you barely knew, or maybe it was just a long, exhausting day that finally made you snap at the wrong time over something small. At that moment, did you feel like you had no choice? Like your emotions took the wheel and drove you straight into regret? Here's a bold but necessary question. Did you really lose control, or did you surrender it? Section 5. Losing control is a choice. Most people grow up believing that their emotions are reactions to what happens around them, that anger, frustration, or sadness come from other people's behavior or from external situations. But when you stop to examine it carefully, something surprising becomes clear. We don't lose control because of the outside world. We lose control because we allow it, because we choose to. Let's walk through a common scenario. You're standing in line at a supermarket. You're tired. You just want to pay and go home. Suddenly, someone cuts in front of you without even acknowledging you. That wave of anger hits fast. Your pulse quickens. Your mind prepares for confrontation. A dozen thoughts storm through your head. But then you pause. You remember a key lesson from Stoicism. You cannot control the actions of others. You can only control your reaction to them. At that moment, two distinct paths appear before you. One, act on that anger, let it lead, confront the person, escalate the situation. Or two, take a breath, respond with dignity, or not respond at all. Epictetus, the Stoic master, once said, "It is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must believe that you are being harmed." This truth is both challenging and liberating. It reveals that no one can truly disrupt your inner peace unless you hand it over willingly. If someone insults you and you become angry, it isn't their insult that harmed you. It's your acceptance of the insult that did. Think about someone you deeply respect, perhaps a mentor, a wise elder, or a leader you've admired. Have you ever noticed how some of these people rarely, if ever, raise their voice? How they remain composed even in the face of criticism or stress? They aren't emotionless. They simply made a decision. I will not let someone else control my state of mind. Let me share a small yet powerful story. During rush hour on a crowded train, a young man accidentally stepped on an elderly gentleman's foot. The young man turned, apologized immediately. The old man looked up, nodded, and went right back to reading his book. Another passenger nearby was surprised. He asked the elderly man, "Why aren't you angry?" If that were me, I would have yelled at him. The old man smiled and calmly replied, "He didn't do it on purpose. And besides, getting angry won't make my foot hurt any less, but it will make my mind heavier." Let that sink in. Anger doesn't resolve pain, it magnifies it. It doesn't give you control, it takes it away. The way we interpret events is the root of our emotions. One person sees someone cutting in line and thinks, "That's an insult." Another sees the same act and thinks, "Maybe they're in a hurry." This is my chance to practice patience. Same event, completely different outcomes. So how can you begin to train your mind for these moments? First, recognize this truth. You always have a choice. When irritation arises, pause. Don't rush to defend or attack. Ask yourself, will this reaction actually help? Will it move things forward or pull me into deeper conflict? If the answer is no, then let it pass, because not everything deserves your energy. And sometimes silence is not weakness, it's precision. It's the deliberate act of choosing peace over pointless war. Remember, when you choose calm over chaos, you aren't just avoiding drama, you're strengthening your discipline. You're becoming someone others can't provoke easily. And that kind of stillness, it unsettles people who live off reaction. Now, having laid the foundation of emotional discipline, it's time we explore something just as vital, perhaps even more difficult in today's world. Lesson 6, detach from the outcome. Because expectation is a silent thief of joy. Once you've chosen to control your reactions, the next challenge is learning to control where your mind wanders, especially when it strays into the past or leaps too far into the future. We've all been there. A restless night, thoughts looping on a mistake we made years ago, or an anxious morning, already imagining everything that could go wrong by next week. It's exhausting. And what's worse, it steals the only moment we actually have any power over. This one. Lesson 6. Don't get stuck in the past or the future. Have you ever found yourself haunted by regret? Maybe it was a missed opportunity, a conversation you wish had gone differently, or a decision that didn't pan out. Or perhaps you're someone who constantly projects forward, worrying about outcomes, overanalyzing future conversations, rehearsing problems that haven't even happened. This is how so many of us live, or more accurately, exist. It's like sitting in a rocking chair. Your mind is moving, but you're going nowhere. Stoicism offers a powerful solution, a reminder that's both ancient and incredibly practical. Live in the present. That's the only place you have any influence. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor and a philosopher, once said, "Remember that man lives only in the present, in this fleeting instant. All the rest of his life is either past and gone or not yet revealed." That single thought, while simple, holds the power to radically shift how we experience life. Think about it. The past? Gone. The future? Unknown. Yet we give them so much of our energy. We relive conversations, we replay what ifs, we overthink tomorrows that haven't even arrived, and in doing so, we lose today. Dwelling on the past is like trying to rearrange furniture in a house that's already burned down. And worrying about the future? That's like trying to walk a tightrope that hasn't been built yet. In both cases, the result is the same: stress, distraction, and emotional instability. So, how do we shift away from this? The answer is in the age old Stoic practice of mindfulness. Now, mindfulness doesn't require you to sit cross legged under a tree for hours. It's not about escaping reality, it's about becoming intensely present in it. It starts with small, simple actions. Paying full attention to your breath during a walk. Noticing how your coffee feels in your hand instead of scrolling your phone. Bringing your attention back to a conversation instead of checking out mentally. Each of these moments is like a workout for your mind. You're training it to come back to now. Every time it drifts into the shadows of memory or the fog of anticipation. There's a powerful story from the world of professional sports. Novak Djokovic, one of tennis's all-time greats, once admitted that earlier in his career, he struggled with dwelling on past defeats and fearing the outcomes of future matches. These thoughts consumed him, preventing him from fully focusing during critical moments. Everything began to change when he committed to one mindset shift. Play each point as if it's the only one that exists. Not the one before, not the next one, just this point. With that approach, he didn't carry the baggage of missed shots, nor did he collapse under the weight of expectations. Each serve, each return became an opportunity not to dominate, but to remain composed and present. And that presence became his competitive edge. His ability to stay grounded in the now helped him break records, win titles, and rise above opponents with more brute force but less mental clarity. So, what can we learn from that? You don't have to be a world-class athlete to master the present moment. You just have to practice catching your thoughts when they drift, then gently bringing them back, like training a dog to sit. No anger, no judgment, just repetition. Every time you do this, you're reclaiming your attention. You're building a mind that isn't ruled by regret or fear, but rooted in clarity. And that brings us to our next powerful principle, perhaps the one that truly sets Stoic thinkers apart. Lesson 7: expectation is a hidden trap. Let go and liberate your mind. After learning the value of staying grounded in the present, the next challenge is carrying that presence with you, especially when the world around you spirals into chaos. Lesson 7: life is chaotic, but calmness lies within you. Life rarely sticks to our plans. You can wake up feeling energized, hopeful, maybe even excited about what's ahead. But all it takes is one unexpected email, a sudden disagreement, or a phone call you weren't ready for. And suddenly, your day feels like it's falling apart. That's the nature of life: unpredictable, disruptive, messy. But here's the quiet truth Stoicism teaches us: chaos is not your enemy, it's your teacher. In a storm, most people flail, they panic, they react. But those who have trained their minds, those who've learned to pause, breathe, and observe, are the ones who remain steady. And that steadiness, that's power, real power. Have you ever noticed how rare calmness has become? In traffic, at work, on social media, everywhere you look, people are ready to snap. But the one who remains centered, unshaken, unaffected by the noise, that person stands out. Not because they're louder, but because they're rooted. Take a simple example. You're driving home after a long day, your mind finally settling. Suddenly, a reckless driver swerves into your lane. You slam the brakes. Your heart jolts. That familiar anger rises, urging you to lay on the horn, yell, even chase them down. But pause. Ask yourself, what do I gain by reacting? Does it solve the problem? Does it give you peace? Or does it only add fuel to a fire that burns you more than anyone else? Now picture this, same situation, but you take a deep breath. You acknowledge the danger, adjust your focus, and move on. Calmly, you protect not only your physical safety, but your inner peace. You've made a powerful choice to not give away your control. That's what Stoicism is about. Not denial, not numbness, but deliberate response. Because life will always offer you moments where you could lose it. Someone says something rude in a meeting, a friend betrays your trust, a project collapses after weeks of effort. In those moments, your instinct may scream to fight back, to lash out, to crumble. But that's not where your strength lives. Your true strength appears when you don't give in to the chaos, when you let others rage and panic while you stay still. Not cold, not passive, but anchored. You see, when someone is angry, they want you to match their energy. When someone's anxious, they look for company in their fear. If you join them, you become a mirror of their turmoil. But if you stay calm, you hold up a mirror to their imbalance, and that unsettles them far more. Let's bring this down to daily life. Picture a family argument. Voices are raised, emotions run hot. Someone throws a harsh comment your way, your body tenses, you feel your heart pounding. A dozen comebacks flood your mind, but you do something different. You don't react, you pause, breathe. You recognize that saying something now may only escalate the fire. So instead, you respond with silence, or maybe a calm question. Something like, "What do you need right now?" Or simply, "Let's talk later." That choice doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're in control. And that control, that's what Stoicism calls self-mastery. So how do we develop this level of calmness consistently? We start small, in traffic, in line at the grocery store, in conversations that trigger us. Every time we choose peace over reaction, we are rewiring our nervous system. We are teaching our mind that it doesn't have to be a slave to the outside world. You'll notice a shift. Over time, what used to provoke you loses its grip. What used to pull you in no longer touches your core. And that brings us to the next powerful insight in our journey. Lesson 8. Expectations are the hidden traps of the mind. Let them go, and you'll finally be free. After realizing the power of silence and calmness in emotional storms, we now step into one of the deepest truths of Stoicism, that we are not the product of our circumstances, but of our responses. Lesson 8. Don't let circumstances define you. There's a moment in everyone's life when the world seems unfair, when nothing goes according to plan, and the future looks far from promising. You might feel the weight of your environment pressing in: poverty, hardship, rejection, loss, and a question starts to echo in your mind. Is this my fate? Stoicism answers with quiet certainty. No, your circumstances do not define you. Your response to them does. Picture a young boy, born into a poor neighborhood. His family struggles to make ends meet. He walks to school in secondhand shoes, carries books passed down from others, and eats simple meals that barely satisfy. Around him, people whisper, "He won't make it far." Teachers overlook him. Classmates pity him. Society has already drawn the blueprint of his future, and it doesn't reach very high. At first, he believes it. He wears the label they gave him like a heavy coat. Maybe they're right, he thinks. Maybe this is all I'll ever be. But then something shifts. One day he hears a different voice, not from outside, but within. A realization. His background may shape his beginnings, but it doesn't get to write the ending. He begins to see his circumstances not as chains, but as training ground. Challenges, yes, but not sentences. And so, step by step, he begins to change. He studies late into the night, even when tired. He picks up small jobs, saves every penny, reads books in the library instead of scrolling through a phone. The odds are still stacked against him, but he keeps going, not loudly, not for recognition, but because he has chosen not to let the world define him. This is what Stoicism teaches us at its core. We cannot control where we start, but we absolutely control how we walk forward. As Epictetus wisely said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. These words aren't just ancient wisdom. They're a lifeline when the world feels like it's crashing down around you. Think back to a time in your own life when things felt unfair. Maybe you were overlooked, underestimated, passed over. Did it feel like your worth was decided for you? Did it seem like no matter what you did, the situation wouldn't change? Now ask yourself, did you stay there or did you rise, even just a little? You see, the moment you stop letting your environment dictate your beliefs is the moment you start taking back your power. Circumstances might limit your options, but they can never limit your attitude. That's yours. That's your domain. A Stoic doesn't seek a perfect life. They don't expect comfort or fairness. What they seek is strength of spirit, the kind of strength that lets you say, this is where I begin, not where I end. So next time life hands you a situation you didn't choose, a betrayal, a loss, a rejection, don't let it shape your identity. Let it shape your resilience. Because the greatest triumph is not in avoiding hardship, but in walking through it with unwavering clarity about who you are and who you're becoming. And that brings us to our final, most empowering principle, one that completes the foundation for inner mastery. Lesson 9, real peace comes from letting go of control, of fear, and especially of expectations. In the last chapter, we learned that you are not shaped by your environment, but by your response to it. Now we explore the quiet strength that allows you to hold that truth, even when everything around you says otherwise. Lesson 10, calmness is a choice, and it's the strongest one you can make. There's a quote that captures the very heart of this idea. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This timeless insight doesn't just sound wise, it defines the core of the Stoic mindset. When adversity strikes, you are always standing at a crossroads. One path leads to surrender, to blame, to victimhood, to waiting for something outside yourself to change. The other path, it leads inward, to ownership, to calm reflection, and to the kind of resilience that comes from within, not from circumstance. Let's return briefly to the story of the boy born into poverty. His transformation didn't begin with winning the lottery or some act of luck. It started with a decision to stop accepting the limitations handed to him by others. Instead of asking, why me? He began to ask, why not me? He didn't deny the hardship. He simply refused to let it define him. That shift in mindset, that subtle yet powerful change, is what separated him from those who never tried. It wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about proving to himself that his value was not set by where he came from, but by how far he was willing to go. Maybe right now, you're going through something difficult. Maybe your reality isn't what you hope for. But pause here for a moment and remember, this is not the end of your story. This is a page, and you are the one holding the pen. Stoicism doesn't teach us to escape reality. It teaches us to face it, calmly and clearly. When someone underestimates you, when the world tells you you can't, you don't need to shout back. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to keep walking, quietly, steadily, with your head high and your peace intact. Because real strength doesn't come from dominance. It comes from discipline. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his private journal, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That is the essence of inner calm. That is power. Calmness is not a passive state. It's not about pretending things are fine when they're not. It's an active discipline, a practice you choose every day. When your flight is delayed, when someone insults you, when plans fall apart, you don't explode, you don't collapse. You pause, you breathe, you choose how to respond. And in that choice, you become unshakable. Think about your own life. Have there been moments where calmness saved you from saying something you'd regret? Have there been times when holding your silence felt stronger than shouting your truth? That's what Stoicism trains you for. Not for applause, not for perfection, but for peace. Peace that doesn't depend on ideal conditions. Peace that endures even in chaos. So now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever applied this kind of calm, stoic thinking in your own life? Or are there moments you look back on wishing you had? Feel free to share your story in the comments below. You never know who it might inspire. And if this video helped you, even just a little, please take a second to hit the like button. It sends a ripple further than you think. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this isn't the end. This is only the beginning. We've only scratched the surface of Stoic wisdom. There are deeper insights, practical tools, and timeless truths waiting in the next videos. So stay with us. Keep exploring. And until next time, remember, you control how the story unfolds.